Okay, go.
1977, on the Yochib expedition, Michael Boon showed up with a caver. Well, he was already there when we arrived, but he showed up with a person he picked up hitchhiking across North America and convinced him to go to Yochib. And this guy was a non-caver, and here he was being taken to probably one of the most dangerous river caves in North America, especially if it floods. And he referred to this fellow by the name of Weasel. And so he says, Weasel is still sucking his mum's tit, was referred to him. And well, they had been camping down in the cave and at a camp. And when we got there, Boone had not concentrated the bog in one area, but just shit all around the camp, and there was toilet paper hanging down the edge of the flowstone. And Boone had been drunk a lot in camp because he carried a gallon jug of cognac down there. And his caving gear was real manky. He had a lot of wooden wedges and polypropylene rope and stuff like that. And he was, anyway, when we showed up there with our rigging gear to go past Camp 1, he wanted us to carry all his wooden blocks and be his Sherpas, and of course we didn't. We just kept on going caving. So, and there's that part. Another time we had a visitor show up in camp. He was basically a tourist, but he's a great big guy. Boone sat next to him and spit on his foot. The guy was wearing sandals with no socks. And I thought there was going to be a fight right there and then, but the guy was well composed, since there was around a whole bunch of cavers. You know, one against everybody, potentially. But Boone just kind of smiled about it, you know, and went on nonchalantly like it never happened. And then there's some story in Texas where Mike Boon was driving down the road with another Texas caver, and they saw two guys fighting with knives. And Boone yells out the window, "Fight like men, use your fists." So, and another time he was chasing the caver Gene Janswitz. Boone had showed up in Watland and was camped down in the Cueva entrance of Rio Iglesia, up in the Vampire Bat Roost. And apparently he knew we were here because we were having to haul all our water up 160 vertical meters from the Rio Iglesia stream. There was no running water in town, or electricity, or even roads. And Boone came up the mountain with his pack on his back, looking for Gene Janswitz, because that was the gal he was in love with at the time. But I don't think it was reciprocated. And so he was asked if Gene was here, and we said no, and he just kind of stoically started to walk past me and with his pack on his back, and I saw there was a huge spider on his pack. And I said, "Mike, there's a spider on your pack." It was real close to his face, in the top part of his pack, and he just looked back at it and smiled and walked on, didn't say a word. And I said to Bill, I said, "His only friend." Mike Boon is a great guy. I remember he showed up at the NSS convention and gave a very good talk. I think it was about Yochib, but he walked up on the podium barefooted and in Michael Boon fashion gave his speech, which was very eloquent. Liked old Mike Boon. He's an interesting character. And certainly he was when I was coming along in the early 20s, he was definitely the old man of caving. So, really enjoyed him.
Brilliant, thanks for that.
If I can think of anything else, I'll think about it. Those are some of the major stuff.
Oh, that's some good stuff. Thank you for that.
Oh, and there's the time that he went to the bottom of Yochib, when we finally got it rigged and explored down to the terminal chamber And of course, there's a big pool of water, and the water came up to the wall and curled down an inch. So all that sump water was being pooled. And there's still 700 feet of potential below that, so if you could ever get through that, dive through that, and come up into, you'd probably come up into walking passage and that kind of stuff, and more river drops. But he got down to the sump and he wanted to christen it, in typical Mike Boon fashion, he says, "I always shit in the sump." So he dropped his wetsuit and took a dump in the sump.
Brilliant. Thank you for that.
Yeah, he was a great guy. Is that ready?
Yep.
When Mike was also a moocher too. When he'd show up at people's houses, people would seat him at the table and have dinner with him, and let's say you had a bowl of beef stroganoff with egg noodles with meat with gravy on top. First thing he would do is fish out all the meat on his plate and leave everybody else with the noodles. Yeah, that's a story I've heard. I'm sure Bill could tell you some more stories.
I've got to
There'll
get
be
it.
some overlap, but
Oh, definitely.
he's had more experience with